right, let's get into it. Today we're going to be looking at your hot takes. So this is your guys' hot takes. These have been submitted through our Discord. So if you haven't joined our Discord, there will be a link in the description below. So make sure to go ahead and join the Discord. Then you can get involved with videos like these. But today we're going to be debating your hot takes. We're going to be discussing them. We're going to be tearing them apart, aren't we, Harry?
Yeah, there were some real tasty ones in here. So I'm looking forward to getting into them. I think it can get pretty controversial, these hot takes. So yeah, it should be exciting to say the least.
And we've got quite a few submissions, so if there is enough interest in this video, and if people go and add some more after this, then we may have to do a part 2. So, let's get into it. We're starting with George's hot take. Ella Morris should be on the plane with England in the summer. She's such a top right back that she'll be pushing for that starting spot in the next few years. Let's break this down. First part of the question, Ella Morris should be on the plane with England in the summer. What are your initial thoughts?
I think it's a really interesting point, and it is a valid one. We have spoken about previously on the channel, especially in the most recent international break, England's lack of depth in the fullback, in the wing-back areas. So to have a natural fullback who could come in and offer some rotation would be very, very handy for England. And another thing we spoke about is the actual lack of available and selectable fullbacks. There aren't very many English fullbacks that you could argue are of the quality, but I do think that Morris is a very capable player. She has a lot of potential. I think my biggest concern with her will be the lack of minutes. I mean, I know she's played a squad role really for Tottenham this season, but I think can you take someone who hasn't been starting week in, week out, especially when potentially she's not of that top quality just yet? I think it could be an interesting one, but in terms of other options, are there any? Because I think that could be what could be in her favour. No offence to Morris, I think a lot of potential, very young player there. But if there's no other options, then is there any other? Is there there's not a decision to be made between her and someone else at the moment?
Well, that's the thing. I think if it's between watching Morris be the backup or Carter, I think at the moment I'd prefer Morris to play that role. I think though, looking at Wiegman's thought process, Tissier will be used as a right back, which is a question within itself, and there is a question coming up on that, a hot take coming up on that later, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But if Tissier is used that right back, I don't think we'll see Morris go. But the question is, should she go? And I don't necessarily disagree. I think that England could do with another right back option. It's definitely the right hand side which has a more prevalent issue, because I think on the left hand side, while she's not getting called up, Potty Pattinson could easily come into the side, and suddenly England look like they've got some really good depth at left back. So I don't think that should be an issue. But at right back, there's a reluctance to hand anyone else an opportunity, and Lucy Bronze can't play forever. Yeah. So I think Morris could be a top right back, as is stated in the second half of the hot take. So we're going to rate these as either we're going to extinguish them or we're going to let them burn. They both sound bad, I've realised.
Yeah, but we're rocking with it. I think it's a good one. Yeah,
they're cooking.
Yeah, they're cooking. I think they are indeed cooking, as to put it. But yeah, I see a lot of similarities between Morris and Lazell, who will probably compete. Right now, they could probably compete for a spot, but in the next few years, they'll probably be playing, coincidentally with each other, both getting called up, both enjoying really good campaigns. And while Lazell is still getting back to full fitness, Morris is, for me, definitely in there. And as you say, with that top, with that comment, was it about becoming a top player?
Yes, top right back should be pushing for that starting spot in the next few years.
100%. Between her and Lazell, I think they could definitely be sharing it, and I can see Morris potentially being favoured.
Well, I think Lazell as well is someone who, if she hadn't got injured this season, would be a shoe into this squad. Yeah. She can cover left back, right back, and centre back, which is incredibly useful to have that versatility. I think she's a better player than Jess Carter. I think she's a better player than Esme Morgan. So I think in that regard, Lazell's been really unlucky with injuries. If she has a stellar last few months of the season, maybe she'll force her way into consideration. But I think it's just a little bit too little, too late. She's got to have a fantastic last few months of the season to be in Wiegman's thinking. And let's move on to the next one then. It is from Weno, I believe. I maybe pronounced that name incorrectly, but they say some clubs don't want the women's game to grow. Controversial one. And I think it's the Lexis used here is important to talk about. Some clubs don't want the women's game to grow. I think it'd be a correct statement to say that some clubs don't care if the women's game grows or not. I think, you look at the clubs that aren't investing a lot and it's clear they don't care. I don't think there's any clubs that actively don't want the women's game to grow. but there are some that just don't care about the growth.
Yeah, it's a hard one to look at, as you say. It depends how you word it. I think it's the whole debate over priorities, and I agree, there are definitely some clubs out there where not only is the women's game and their women's club the second priority, it's almost the last priority, and it is and that is a massive thing. I mean, with I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments on it are very interesting, saying that I think he said it was Man United's 650 million revenue and profit. 640 million was bought in by the men's team, and obviously I know he was just bounding around figures and just.
I think that is accurate. To be fair, 10 million is around what United brought in.
And it's a horrible, harsh reality of where the women's game is right now, because from a business owner's point of view, with those numbers, anyone would go, of course, you're going to prioritise the one that's bringing in 640 million and not worry about. And that's the thing, it shouldn't be. That's where the problem comes. Is that from Sir Jim Ratcliffe's point of view, just to use him as this example,
I think it's a good, valuable example.
He doesn't really mind what happens with that 10 million from the women's game. Whereas there are, other clubs have similar, figures. The difference is though both owners still want both sides of the game to improve. And I think it's interesting to see. But yeah, on the whole, there are clubs out there, there are owners out there who who will never and have never prioritised or willingly kind of invested and shown that belief in the women's side of the game.
Well, I think it's all about the phrasing, really, of how this has been phrased, because you talk there about Ratcliffe and it's all about the money for Ratcliffe. It's not that he doesn't want the women's game to grow, because if it does grow and it's suddenly turning over hundreds of millions of pounds, he's going to care.
Yeah.
But it's that problem at the moment. I think it's a distinction there between the language used. So I would disagree. I would extinguish this hot take. I don't think there's any clubs who don't want the women's game to grow. I just think there's some that don't care if it does or doesn't. So I think that would be the important distinction to make there. Let's move on then to one from FPL Bailey, a regular contributor in the live chat. He says, Rachel Daly is finished as the starting striker for Aston Villa. Spicy one. Did we see this on Sunday, though, with the big game against Manchester City in the FA Cup quarter-final, Rachel Daly benched? Does that agree, then, with what Bailey's saying in this comment?
I think it does, as you say. Bench for a big game like Man City, and this season we have seen Daly either being dropped or being, in terms of being dropped out of the starting 11 or being dropped deeper on the pitch. She has occupied at times that number 10 role, but this, I think what makes this hot take more interesting is obviously it's Rachel Daly, a player who we've seen move from being a nailed-on starting left-back, who then transformed into a starting striker at a new club, and for her country as well. And it's been a bit of a weird mix of positions, and now it feels like it was decided that she wasn't a left-back and moved to striker, and now it's starting to feel as she gets older, but potentially lost half a yard of pace. I love Rachel Daly. This isn't a criticism. This is just reality. She has been dropped into a deeper role, which is something that we do see with a lot of players. We see quite a few players can sometimes be dropped deeper and use other aspects of their game. But I think I think it's a good point. As a starting striker in the WSL, potentially her days are over, if not numbered.
Yeah, I think I'd never liked the term finished, because I don't think any footballer is finished per se. They'll evolve and they'll reach different stages of their career. I think Rachel Daly now would be an incredibly useful backup striker for Aston Villa, someone who can come on in the last 10 minutes and offer a huge contribution to this Villa side. Or if she plays deeper, she can contribute there. But I think by saying the starting forward, I don't think Rachel Daly's at that level anymore to be the starting forward. We've seen Gabby Nunes come in this season and look really good in that role. We saw Ebony Salmon play there in the Manchester City game, and her directness and her pace in behind was really useful. So I think in that regard, I would agree with this one. I will allow Bailey to keep cooking.
Yeah, I think the other key factor is that the point is that she's finished as a starting striker for Aston Villa. And also we mentioned Daly there, but also the quality that Villa have brought in over the last summer or two has been really, really strong. The attackers, you mentioned Nunes there. They've brought in Grant, Salmon's starting. Leon was in the fold, but now she's gone. But it's been Villa have got have reinforced in the front line, and perhaps they're starting to bring in players who are younger and are potentially a little bit better.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Rachel Daly steps down to the Championship. I have no doubt she is the top goal scorer.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if she does make that step down in a few years' time. Because I think, if she is only that rotational player for Aston Villa, we should be happy with that. Possibly not. It depends what her aspirations are. But I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle are still in the second division, or if London City Lionesses are still in the second division, if they could tempt Rachel Daly with a decent payday at the end of her career, and that would probably get them out of the Women's Championship. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the future, what the future holds for Rachel Daly.
Yeah.
I imagine she'll stay this summer, but it's not 100% nailed that she will. But I think as a rotational option, or playing slightly deeper in the side, I definitely think she could still offer a lot to Aston Villa. I would agree with the take, though, that she's finished as the starting striker. Right, tasty one coming up next.
Ooh.
Trendy Replica says Maya Le Tissier is a far better all-rounded centre-back than Leah Williamson.
Wow.
And the Arsenal fans are going to be clicking off the video, disliking it, but let's talk about it. Maya Le Tissier, undeniably one of the top defenders in the WSL right now.
Yeah, let's go to Le Tissier first. Has had a stellar season, has been absolutely brilliant for Manchester United, probably their player of the season. I know Totti Tullis, yes, they've played brilliantly United, but Le Tissier has been one of those standouts. The consistency, I think, has been unreal. Has barely put us. I can't remember her putting a foot wrong all season, and if she has, it's very, very rare. And a massive reason why United have only conceded single digits this season. Why United currently sit only 8 points behind Chelsea with a game in hand. It's why United are so comfortable in that second place. Is Le Tissier having such a stellar season? And she's done, and even over this campaign, she's done a really good job for England. Obviously, she hasn't started often, but she played right wing back against, was it Switzerland or South Africa? May have even been both, but it was at least one of them.
Yeah.
So has done a real good job, and that versatility as well, I think, does help her. But as a centre half, has had a really, really strong season.
Yeah, I think she is, for me, the best performing centre-back in the league this year. I think even you look at Chelsea's defenders, they've still been a bit shaky. There's a reason Manchester United have the best defence in the league this season, and people will attribute that to Fallon Tullis-Joyce, who has contributed immensely. But I think a larger part of it goes to Maya Le Tissier, and it's a range of factors. It's her leadership from the back. I think she's taken the armband this season for United, and they look much more organised. They look like they've got a leader now who they believe in, who they trust in that role. And I think Le Tissier's done a really good job at that. That organisation of the back line, really, really strong. I think her as an individual player, she's just phenomenal. Her tackling is second to none at the moment in the league. Her blocking, again, really, really strong blocking numbers. And given she's not the tallest, really strong aerially as well. Again, if she's a couple inches taller, probably the best defender we've ever seen. It's just that difficulty. But she's such an incredible talent. And I think this is a really good question, because Leah Williamson started off as a more midfield player. We've seen her transition to a centre-back over the last few years. She obviously had that ACL injury, which I think has impacted her and her development. But I wouldn't disagree with this take. I think Williamson is a very good player, but she has got a mistake in it. And I don't think she's as good as a leader as a lot of people make out. Yes, England won the Euros in 2022, but I think Maya Le Tissier is a better leader, a stronger leader than Williamson, and probably a better all-round player. I think that may be a controversial take, but from what I've seen, I think Le Tissier is a better player.
It is a difficult one. Williamson's, for me, the top three things that you see from Leah Williamson, which are absolutely outstanding, are the range of passing and the ability, the leadership, and the aerial ability. And I think, as you say, when talking about Le Tissier has that passing range in her. We've seen that when she's covered fullback. We've seen that for Manchester United, just managing to, if you're not too much this season, to be fair, because United have actually decided that United have played well enough that they are playing football and they are just playing teams off the park. They're not relying on Le Tissier to play a beautiful switch to Clinton or someone who then scores a brilliant goal. And as you say, the leadership she's developed over the last couple of seasons, and the area ability for someone who isn't the tallest is really strong. Yeah. They are close, and again, it's no slight on Williamson. It is a mixture of the as you say, the major injury for Williamson has led to an obvious decline. That was always going to happen. It always does when a player is out for a long time. And Le Tissier is younger and is developing rapidly. So I think they're very close. but it's hard to say whether she's far better as an all-round centre. I think they're both.
Again, it comes down to the word.
But I think they're both brilliant centre halves. I think it's very close.
Because all-round as well has an impact here. Because Tissier for me is undoubtedly a better defender. She's a stronger tackler. She's better duelling. She's better in terms of blocks. She's better in terms of body shape. All of those. She's a stronger player, much more physical than Leah Williamson, I'd argue. So I think in that regard, she's a better defender. All-round centre-back does make it a bit different because that involves those characteristics like leadership, like that range of passing you mentioned. What I would argue, though, is I think Tissier is a much more consistent passer than Williamson. I think Williamson has more of these huge moments where she plays that ball in behind and Arsenal are in. But I think there's also a lot of moments that don't get clipped up, where she does just punt the ball forwards and it doesn't go to anyone. And so, yes, some fantastic passes in there, but you can also argue that if you throw enough, mud at the wall, it's going to stick. So I think, obviously, Leah Williamson, fantastic footballer. Not doubting that for a second, but I rate Myla Tissier incredibly highly. So I'd say I'll allow Trendy Replica to cook here.
Am I allowed to sit on the fence? Is that something? I'm not going to.
It sounds uncomfortable.
I'm not going to extinguish it, but I'm not going to start cooking yet.
Okay.
We're just going to let it.
Hot debate video on how he's going to sit on the fence and not get involved. All right, let's move on to the next one then. Kayla says, Aggie Beever-Jones is far more deserving of a starting spot in England's lineup over their other forwards, except Lauren James. I'm going to have to disagree from the off here.
Yeah.
I think you look at England's forwards this season, Alessia Russo's the name that immediately jumps out at me, arguably bar Khadija Shaw, but we're not counting her. She's too good. Bar Khadija Shaw, Alessia Russo, the best striker in the league this season. Her hold-up play has taken a huge leap forward. She looks much more confident in front of goal. She's now taking her chances with a lot more consistency. And I think in an Arsenal side that is built around creating Russo chances, she's thriving. And if England are set up in the same way, which they have always appeared to be, to create chances for the central striker, I think Russo's going to thrive in that environment. We saw her score in the draw with Portugal. We saw her a huge driving force behind the goal against Spain, which went on to win the game. It was a fantastic bit of play. The deception with the body to take it past Irene Paredes and then to take a shot. It was saved and fell to Jess Park. That was phenomenal from Alessia Russo. And we're seeing more and more of that in her game, those elite moments. And I think that, you just can't deny that she's one of the best strikers in the world right now. So I think in that regard, I don't think Beever-Jones is more deserving of a starting spot in England's lineup over Russo. I think she's definitely the backup striker there, though. Yeah. And I'm confused as to why we've not really seen her play through the middle. But
again, I think the problem for Aggie Beever-Jones, I think she's an incredible talent, but it's the I know this season that she has still played quite a few minutes, but it has been a drop off from the minutes she got last season. And when you consider that the likes of Sam Kerr and Mia Fischel are coming back for Chelsea, I think her minutes going to be even lower. And even as that backup striker with Nikita Parrish playing like she is, there's a really tough argument. And I think that's the problem, is that the one thing that Beever-Jones doesn't have compared to all the other forwards is consistent minutes. When Park, Parrish, Russo, Clinton, Toon, they're all playing really consistently. I do agree. I think there are definitely some forwards in there. I think Beever-Jones is potentially more deserving than the likes of Jess Naz, especially this season. Naz hasn't played well enough. I think Mead is a tough one because on performances, yes, I'd agree. I think Beever-Jones is probably more deserving. But when Beth Mead on her day is a phenomenal player, and has been a key part of the England squad. So it depends where your favouritism lies.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Because Vegan is going to pick her favourites, and we're all well aware of that. Chloe Kelly shouldn't be in the England squad right now. And Vegan admitted that herself, only to then go and call her up when Mead pulled out of injury. And while Aggie Beever-Jones sat on the bench and didn't get involved in the Spain game and came on the wing in the Portugal game, we saw Chloe Kelly come on in both games earlier on and get more minutes. That's bizarre for me. For a player who was exiled on the Friday, on the Monday, was then suddenly getting involved on the Friday and then again on the Wednesday. That was really weird decision making for me. And I think Aggie Beever-Jones in that regard probably won't get a whole load of minutes with England this summer and is at risk of not actually getting a spot on the plane because there are people who Wiegman prefers, who Wiegman trusts and relies upon.
Yeah, it's one of those where, as you say, I think if we're being realistic, there's a good chance that Aggie Beever-Jones won't be on the plane. But from my point of view, I think that she should be on the plane, but I don't think she should be starting. That's
And she's
where I
definitely
sit
not
right now.
far more deserving of a starting spot in England's lineup over their other forwards. So, Kayla, unfortunately, we are going to be extinguishing that hot take.
Yeah.
Let's get on to the next one then. This comes from Emma, who says, Hannah Hampton needs to be England's #1 goalkeeper. Mary Earps isn't as good as she used to be.
Oh, I like that one.
Another tasty one. This has been a huge debate over the last few months, of course. We saw Mary Earps play the game against Portugal. We saw Hannah Hampton play the game against Spain. Clean sheet for Hampton, no clean sheet for Earps. We've seen consistently over the last few months that Hannah Hampton has taken those bigger games. She played the USA game. I think that playing the US game, playing the Spain game, quite poignant that she's played both those games. Does that point towards her being the starting goalkeeper, and does she deserve it?
I think yes, the fact that she's playing in those bigger and more important games would suggest that the debate is coming to a close, and that Hampton, come the summer, will be England's nailed-on #1. In terms of deserving it, I think so. I know it was a massive debate between Tissier and Williamson about who's better all round wise. Same with Hampton and Earps. The difference is
much closer.
Yeah,
it's so difficult to call.
Yeah, it is really difficult to call. I think that Hampton potentially on her day has better distribution. I think shot stopping still goes to Earps. So that's where it's a very difficult one, because it really depends what England want to do. If they want to turn up the tournament, play really nice football, and roll teams over, and use the goalkeeper to play superb football, you want Hannah Hampton. But in those big games where you need a goalkeeper who's going to pull off sensational saves, when perhaps you're going to be under a lot of pressure, you'd favour Earps. I think based on who England are, England will go into the tournament as one of the favourites, reigning champions. You want to turn up and dominate the tournament. So for me, Hampton is probably the better option.
But even then, I think the difference is negligible between the both of them in both aspects. It's a really
true.
difficult call to make. I think for me, though, Hampton has performed better in England's shirt over the last 12 months, so I would sway in that way. The difficulty is Hampton has made some pretty high-profile mistakes this season for Chelsea. You look at Brighton only 2-3 weeks ago now, where she allows the shot in at the near post, and it's in the back of the net. And I think that there has still been some mistakes in that regard. So I think it's a really tough call. Second part of this, Mary Earps isn't as good as she used to be. It's probably true, but that's only because she was at a truly astronomically high level. You think back to the Euros of 2022, unstoppable at that tournament, and unstoppable for Manchester United across the season prior and after. And so there was that spell where no one got near Earps for me as a goalkeeper. And naturally there's going to be a decline. Last season she was still huge for Manchester United. But I think her achievements have definitely been discredited slightly by how well Tullis Joyce has done this season.
Yes.
Because it definitely then opens up questions of how good was Earps and was it the United setup and all that. But Earps was still phenomenal. Yeah. And so I think that's definitely not up for debate. But I think, yes, there's a natural drop-off that's going to occur. Yeah. So, yes, Earps isn't as good as she used to be, and I would agree that Hannah Hampton needs to be England's #1. But I think it's really close.
Yeah, especially with Earps leaving Man United to go to PSG. Now, I think with PSG getting knocked out of the Champions League before the tournament even started, I think, and leaving the WSL to go and play in the Premier League, I think that that is a slight drop off in terms of the competitiveness and the pressure and the the So it's
but also to not even go and play for Lyon.
Yeah,
that does open up the questions. But yes, to finish, Emma, you keep on cooking. You've smashed it there. Last one then, and it comes again for a regular contributor in the live chat, Phil East, who says Manchester United are the best coached team in the league this year.
Oh,
a controversial one.
I can see Mark Skinner haters are going mental.
I was going to say the amount of hate I've seen lobbied at Mark Skinner since the sacking of Gareth Taylor, with a lot of United fans going, well, City have sacked their manager and he's not half as bad as our one. I think the disrespect and the agenda surrounding Mark Skinner is truly reaching bizarre levels. I know that there have been issues in the past where people have complained about his conduct or the conduct around the club, but I think it's really difficult to verify any of those accounts. And when you have players like Maya Tissier, who came out the other day and spoke about the camaraderie in the team and how well the manager had done this season, I think that for me spoke volumes. It's only players that once they leave complain about the environment that they were in. I think the JC situation has opened up huge attacks at Skinner. I don't think Skinner's involved there.
No.
It's quite clear that the board wanted to sell JC or loan her out while she was at her brother's funeral. That's not on Skinner, for me.
Yeah.
He has no involvement in the... Well, he won't have a direct involvement in the transfers. That falls on the head of women's football, and that falls on the recruitment staff, which is nothing to do with Skinner, who is managing the day-to-day. So I think in that regard, that can't be used against Skinner. There's been complaints before about his conduct. I think he's clearly a very passionate man. He's someone who demands the best out of his players. But I think it's shown this season the results that Manchester United have got. They're the best defensive side in the league. They're the closest team to Chelsea. In any other season, they're competing for the title right now.
Yeah.
So I think, given the budget constricts that they are on, given the fact there's not been the level of investment that there has been at the likes of Chelsea, I think he's done an incredibly good job. And so I don't disagree. I think you look at Chelsea's performances this season and how Bon Pastor has coached them, and obviously they've been really, really good. But I think there has been games where they have relied on individual quality to get them through the matches. And I think that's been a criticism I've lobbied at Manchester United and Skinner in seasons gone by, but I don't think you can this season. Yes, they've had Clinton. They've had a few of the same goal scorers. Clinton, Turl, and Toon have provided the majority of the goals this season. But I think when you look at how they're coming about, there's a fantastic structure to both their attack and their defence this season. And I think you could make a very strong argument, as Phil does, that United are the best coached team in the league this year.
Yeah, I mean, the away game at the Etihad in the Manchester derby was probably the best tactically coached game I've seen at all this season. From Mark Skinner and Man United, the way he set up, single-handedly won them that football game because the players executed what he wanted to do and they took Man City to the cleaners.
It's the finest example of pressing I've seen in all of women's football.
Yeah,
really, really
superb.
strong.
And again, he has proven they only narrowly lost to Chelsea, and they've still got to go and play Chelsea, so that'll be very, very interesting. But if they win their game in hand on Friday, they go 5 points behind Chelsea. If Chelsea slip up again, that gap closes to within a win. And for United to be that close, as you say, with the comparison with the amount they've spent, with the interest in the women's game, we've got Todd Bowley over here who's throwing around money and wants to win everything, whereas Jim, you've got the mess that's going on at Man United right
penny
now.
Pinchers at Ineos.
I think Skinner has done absolutely brilliantly, and I think it is a very, very good point, and it's a true point from Phil East to say that Skinner is coaching United so well, and they have been the best coach team in the league.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, Phil East, we will allow you to keep cooking. I think you make a very good point there. I think Skinner's doing a very good job, and there'll be people out there that don't want to hear that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with what he's doing right now. If Manchester United were to get rid of him in the current situation, it would be a huge, huge blunder.
They could win the league this season.
Chelsea have got to play a few more games at the moment than Manchester United, at least 3 more, and then obviously that depends on how both sides progress in the cup. But the extra games they've got to play in there, it could lead to a slip up. If they are to lose to Man City in that WSL match, then it all comes down to when Chelsea play United in May. And so it could become very tight. And I know, granted, United have still got to play City, still got to play Arsenal, but I think it's now a position where United are close enough that it feels feasible, even if you don't think it's necessarily going to happen. It's in a position where it could happen. Yeah,
they've won 7 in a row now in the league. If they beat Liverpool, that'll be 8 in a row. That's incredible form that not many teams can stop. And as you say, they are 2 wins away from lead. If I know, obviously, as you say, there's other games to be played, but if Chelsea lose to City in their massive run of form, and Chelsea, not intentionally, but they kind of value everything and they go, right, let's not focus on the WSL game. They lose to City and then United beat Chelsea. United will lead the WSL by a point. That's how close it is now.
Yeah, obviously there's other results and there's other chances to slip up.
But even if they don't win the league, if they end up finishing only a couple of points behind Chelsea and they go and retain the FA Cup title again, that's another brilliant season. And what they're doing is they're building momentum. And when teams build momentum, it gives them the best chance of winning trophies. So if they finish. So this season they finish 4th, and last season they finished 4th and won the FA, or finished 5th and won the FA Cup. this season they finish second and win the FA Cup. That's progress. And then next season they can look on building on that. And suddenly, potentially there's a title in there somewhere.
And exactly, and you look at the fact that they didn't have UWSL football this year. I think it's helped them in the fact they've been able to rest up a little bit more than the other clubs have. But I think you look at the recruitment they did in the summer without Champions League football. They brought in Elizabeth Turland, one of the most highly sought after strikers in the league, on a free transfer after what was a fantastic season last year. That's fantastic recruitment and a really good use of the funds that are available. They went and brought in Dominique Janssen, a top centre half who was playing for Wolfsburg before she joined the club. They're two huge signings, and they've made a huge difference this year. They went and got Bizet, one of the best performing wingers in the league last season. They did that without the pull of Champions League football.
Yeah.
Now imagine what they can do with Champions League football this summer. You've only got to look at what City and Arsenal did in the last 2 windows, where City signed Caroline, Arsenal signed Mariona Caldente. They're 2 players who, if you add one of those, that calibre of player to the United squad, it takes it up another notch.
Yeah.
So I think United now are in a position that they get Champions League football where they could be really competitive.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a worry for Chelsea. United are looking strong.
They are.
And I think, again, a lot of that falls on Mark Skinner. Maybe we need to do another video on Mark Skinner, because the amount of disrespect I've seen thrown at his name as though he's doing some terrible job this season is utterly bizarre to me. They've lost 2 domestic games all season. That was Chelsea in the league, and it was Manchester City in the League Cup. Other than that, they've won they've been unbeaten in the rest of the games. So I think to argue that he's doing a bad job is just not true.
Yeah,
they've done really well this season. So yeah, I think I'd agree. United are probably the best coach team in the league this year, and that goes down to Mark Skinner. Phillies, you can keep on cooking. That rounds up our hot takes video. There's some spicy ones in there, and I'm sure you guys are going to disagree in the comments below. So go and get your thoughts on all the takes we spoke about in the comments below. And again, we may do another video, so head on over to our Discord now. That'll be linked in the description, and you can go and contribute some more. If we've got enough entries, we'll be doing another one of these in the near future. So look out for those. We've already got enough submissions to do another video, so throw a couple more in there, and we'll be back with more hot takes. That, though, does round up today's video. There'll be another one on screen now if you want to go and check out more of our content. That, though, is everything from us today. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.